take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Wednesday, January 28th, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome to the show, folks. We are running down the last few days of January, approaching January 31st this Saturday. It's my 47th birthday. We're accepting all sorts of presents. Anything you want to send, we're all for it. Not gonna lie. Oh, and of course, the day after my birthday, Sunday the 1st, is Super Bowl Xlix, or 49, for those of you who translate Roman numerals. I can't decide who to root for. Should I root for the cheaters or the heartbreakers? I don't know. We'll just see how that turns out. I hope you have a great Super Bowl Sunday, and I hope our listeners out there in the Northeast are digging out from that amazing snowstorm out there. Saw some of the feeds on that. Pretty brutal, if you ask me. Although, if you've got yourself a fine herbal relaxant, perhaps that'll make the days go by just a little bit quicker. Also making the day go by a little bit quicker, we've got some great news, interviews, and information for all of you seeking to end adult marijuana prohibition in your area. Joining us today in our activist agenda, that'll be at 12:30, we've got Tonya Davis from Responsible Ohioans. She is one of my favorite activists. I've known her for years, seen her at multiple normal events and hemp fests and so forth. She's irrepressible and just an amazing person. We'll talk to her about Responsible Ohioans and their proposal for legalizing marijuana, as well as the other group, Responsible Ohio, which seems to have appropriated their name. Those are the cartel monopolists that most people aren't appreciative of. And there's actually two other groups that are acting for marijuana reform. Legalize Ohio and the Ohio Rights Group is trying to get medical marijuana. It's a lot to untangle, so we'll talk to Tonya about that at 12:30. Also on the show today, we'll have time for a radical rant. It's going to be an epic one today because my Governor John Kitzhaber, MD, spoke to the Oregonian. We've got video of his opinions on Measure 91 and what he thinks needs to be fixed. In the rant, we'll point out that more people voted for legal weed than voted for the governor, so we ought to be careful about what he suggests. Also coming up on the show today in the drug war data mining, we're going to take a look at that report from the ArcView Group, their report on marijuana legalization by 2020, proposing all these numbers of states that are going to be legalizing by 2020. We'll break it down, what they predict as far as state legalization and state medical marijuana by the year 2020. We'll also have time to go behind the headlines. Attorney General nominee Loretta Lynch is being grilled on Capitol Hill, and one senator, Jeff Sessions from Alabama, asked her about her opinions on marijuana legalization. We've got the video from C-SPAN, and we'll talk a little bit more about the possible future attorney general in that segment. That comes right after our 420 radio news. And in the headlines today, lawmakers in the state of Vermont are considering whether or not they'll become the first state to legalize marijuana through their legislature rather than an initiative. We're going to take a look at the state of Virginia, where a new poll shows overwhelming support for medical marijuana and marijuana decriminalization. We've got new data from the Philadelphia Police Department showing the effects of marijuana decriminalization and how much money they may have saved in the city of brotherly love. We've got, speaking of Ohio, the Attorney General of Ohio, Mike DeWine, has some opinions about marijuana legalization you probably disagree with. And Coloradoans may be getting tax money back from their marijuana tax revenues thanks to their taxpayer Bill of Rights. We'll explain that. Plus, we'll take you into Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. We'll have plenty more to discuss, including ideological differences in Missouri, where competing marijuana legalization groups are starting to throw some mud in the press. So we'll tell you all about that and plenty more coming up on the Russ Belville Show. Stick around. We're back right after these messages.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, the home of marijuana experts. This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay. Read the Weed Blog today.
Big Daddy thinks.
Funky roller ring. Oh yeah, this is Big Daddy, and I'll be your freakazoid every Thursday night, right here at the Funky Roller Ring.
Funky
Roller Ring. 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific, only on RadicalRuss.com.
Sir, do you think there will or should come a time for us to discuss the possibility of legalization, regulation, and control of all drugs, thereby doing away with the violent criminal market as well as a major source of funding for international terrorism? Thank you so much for your time, Mr. President.
Well, I think this is an entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Name the time and place, Mr. President. Radical Russ has been prepping for this debate full-time since 2005. The Russ Belville Show.
It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Russ Belville with your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This is your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, January 28th, 2015. Vermont lawmakers are considering whether to become the first state legislature to legalize marijuana. 4 states in the District of Columbia have legalized recreational cannabis, but in each of those cases, it was voters at the ballot box, not lawmakers, who changed the law. Vermont's constitution prohibits ballot referendums and initiatives, meaning any decision on marijuana would have to come directly from lawmakers. Driving much of the debate in Vermont is an independent report commissioned by Governor Shumlin that says state marijuana taxes could generate $20 to $75 million per year. To reach the higher revenue number, the report contemplates marijuana tourism, smokers coming in from other states. The president of the Vermont Association of Chiefs of Police, George Merkel, opposes legalization, saying he doesn't understand why the state is even considering it other than, quote, the lure of money, end quote. Strong majorities of Virginia voters support medical marijuana legalization and laws decriminalizing recreational use, a new poll says. According to a Christopher Newport University survey released Tuesday, 71% of registered Virginia voters support decriminalizing small amounts of marijuana, compared to 26% who oppose it. 69% support legalizing medical marijuana in the state, while 29% oppose. The poll comes days after Democratic State Senator Adam Ebbin introduced a bill to decriminalize the possession of less than a half ounce of marijuana, for which a first-time offender now faces jail time, a misdemeanor charge, and a $500 fine. Ebbin's bill would get rid of the criminal charge and make the penalty a $100 fine. The NAACP and the ACLU have already offered support for the legislation, citing statistics that criminal charges for marijuana possession have a disproportionately negative impact on minority communities. The latest data released by the Philadelphia Police Department show that marijuana arrests have continued to fall dramatically since the city's new decriminalization law was launched in October. Police made 63 arrests for marijuana possession between October 20th, the day the new procedure went into place, and December 31st. There were 35 of the new citations issued in the same time period. The code violations are $25 for possession and $100 for smoking in public. Compared to previous years, this now amounts to an 88% decline in arrests. There were 559 arrests in November and December of 2013 for possession of less than 30 grams of cannabis. A recent report from the Rand Corporation on legalizing marijuana in Vermont took a stab on the cost of individual arrests. Rand estimated each cost the state $1,266, but just $20 to issue decrim tickets. Using that formula, Philadelphia saved $627,000 in 60 days and is on track to save $3.75 million over the course of a year. Ohio's top cop was blunt about his opinion on legalizing marijuana in Ohio. Quote, "I think it's a stupid idea," end quote. Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine said Tuesday that efforts to legalize marijuana in the state would lead to increased use of the drug, more accidents, and less healthy residents. Quote, "When the law says, well, this is okay for adults, people are going to use it," DeWine said. "The proposal, by the way, that I saw is just a ludicrous proposal. It's basically legalizing a monopoly in the state of Ohio among a few individuals or a few companies who will be able to make all the money from the sale of marijuana," he said. "Even if you think selling marijuana is a great idea, I don't know why anyone would think just giving a few people who are going to put the money up to pass it on the ballot is a good idea to let them have that monopoly." Colorado's marijuana experiment was designed to raise revenue for the state and its schools, but a state law may put some of the tax money directly into residents' pockets, causing quite a headache for lawmakers. The state constitution limits how much tax money the state can take in before it has to give some back. That means Coloradoans may each get their own cut of the $50 million in recreational pot taxes collected in the first year of legal weed. It's a situation so bizarre that it's gotten Republicans and Democrats for once to agree on a tax issue. Republicans and Democrats say there's no good reason to put pot taxes back into people's pockets, and state officials are scrambling to figure out how to avoid doling out the money. It may have to be settled by asking Colorado voters for a third time to cast a ballot on the issue and exempt pot taxes from the refund requirement. This has been your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, January 28th, 2015. I'm Russ Belville. .420 Radio, fighting prohibition since 2012.
The Green Cross has been an amazing source of cannabis medicines for my pain management. Whether I need edibles or tinctures or topicals, I'm able to combine the 2 or 3 to give me really successful pain control.
It's the delivery service that Green Cross provides is just incredible. You get your medicine and it's delivered by a person that you trust.
Whether we come to you or you come to us, the Green Cross delivers.
International Cannabis Business Conference is coming to the Hyatt Regency Hotel in San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, 2015. Don't miss this exclusive opportunity to hear from the experts on the future of marijuana commerce, including scientists like Dr. Carl Hart, Dr. Amanda Ryman, and Dr. Stanton Peel, policy experts like Ethan Nadelman from Drug Policy Alliance, Anthony Johnson from Oregon's Legalization Campaign, travel author Rick Steves from Washington's Legalization Campaign, and California legalization pioneer Dale Sky Jones. Business experts like Harborside Steve D'Angelo, ArcView Group's Troy Dayton, and UFCW union leader Dan Rush. Cannabis journalists like Ricardo Baca, Steve Bloom, and Doug Fine, and California Republican Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, plus many, many more. Tickets are on sale now at internationalcbc.com, but hurry, last year's conference in Portland, Oregon was a sellout. International Cannabis Business Conference, San Francisco, California, February 15th and 16th, internationalcbc.com. Welcome back, everyone. 14 after the hour, and time for us to go behind the headlines. And in the news today, Attorney General nominee Loretta Lynch is currently on Capitol Hill. She's being grilled by the senators there for her confirmation as the next Attorney General. We've got video from C-SPAN of Jeff Sessions, the Republican from Alabama, asking her questions with regard to her stance on marijuana legalization. Let's go to the video and then we'll discuss it right afterwards here as soon as I can get that played. Hold on just a moment. Let's make sure that works. There we go.
Big problem with me. Now, do you believe and do you support legalization of marijuana?
Senator, I do not.
I know the head of the DEA It was a little bit out of step with some in administration, I think. Agreed with you on that. The president said this in January of last year. Quote, I smoked pot as a kid and as a bad habit and a vice, not very different from the cigarettes that I smoked as a young person up through a big chunk of my adult life. I don't think it is more dangerous than alcohol. Close quote. Do you agree with that?
Well, Senator, I certainly don't hold that view and don't agree with that view of marijuana as a substance. I certainly think that the president was speaking from his personal experience and personal opinion, neither of which I'm able to share. But I can tell you that not only do I not support legalization of marijuana, it is not the position of the Department of Justice currently to support the legalization, nor would it be the position should I become confirmed as Attorney General.
Well, I do think there's been a lot of silence there. I know the head of the DEA did push back and testified here pretty aggressively, but I think she felt like she was out of step within the administration, and I hope that you will cease to be silent. Because if the law enforcement officers don't do this, I don't know who will, and in the past...
So that's Alabama's Jeff Sessions grilling Loretta Lynch on her support for marijuana legalization. And unfortunately for Sessions, and for Lynch for that matter, there's some problems with what she had to say. First of all, whether or not she supports marijuana legalization is a moot point as Attorney General with respect to people's right to possess and grow their own. There is nothing the Attorney General or the federal government can do to force states to criminalize possession or personal cultivation. Now, the sales aspects that are going on in Colorado, Washington, and eventually Oregon and Alaska is something the federal government could sue to enjoin. That's something that Attorney General Eric Holder mentioned. He also mentioned the fact that should they do that and become successful at stopping the regulated sales and distribution of cannabis in these states, then those states would be left with all the citizens having the right to grow and possess, but nobody being able to sell, which will only exacerbate the black market. So the current Attorney General has done the right thing and understood that it's better to have a regulated market where people are allowed to possess marijuana than to have an unregulated market where people are allowed to possess marijuana. And furthermore, to the senator's question about President Obama's comment regarding marijuana being no more dangerous than alcohol and Loretta Lynch saying she does not share that view, it's not an opinion. This is not an opinion. And as Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the late senator, once said, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. By every objective measure, Ms. Lynch, marijuana is far safer than alcohol in terms of overdoses, traffic fatalities, addiction potential, spousal violence, you name the statistic. And marijuana is far safer than alcohol. It's time for our Attorney General and other people in government to understand that many of these points they're bringing up are no longer opinions. We could possibly tolerate that stance before there was any marijuana legalization, and trying to describe what legalization would be was an abstract. But now we have concrete examples of marijuana legalization, 2 states that are currently moving forward with that legalization. So all of these talking points regarding how many kids might use or how much rates would go up or there would be traffic fatalities or there'd be productivity losses can now be measured. And this is no longer a point of opinion. It is a point of fact. Ask any scientist, ask any doctor, ask any law enforcement officer, at least the ones who are honest, and they will tell you that marijuana is far safer than alcohol. The Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, I believe, is being forced to answer these questions in such a way as not to damage her potential for nomination. There's no way she's going to come out and say, yeah, we absolutely support marijuana legalization, because as the top cop, as the Attorney General, her job is to enforce the federal laws as they are written. So what she thinks the laws ought to be, that's up to the Congress. That's up to Jeff Sessions and his colleagues. It's only up to her to enforce these laws. And regarding the senator complaining that there's been silence from the Attorney General's office and that they haven't stood out and would want Loretta Lynch to stand more forcefully against marijuana legalization. Well, that's a situation also that I don't think is going to come to fore. I think under President Obama's leadership, they're going to keep hands off on marijuana legalization.
Where'd you learn that, Cheech? Drug school.
All right, folks, it's 4:20 in the Mountain Time Zone. Happy 4:20 to all my friends in Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico. Smoke them if you got them. We'll be back with some drug war data mining, and we might find out if your state is one of the next to legalize by 2020. Stick around. .420 Radio, your ticket to the Boston Freedom Rally. Get.Buzz. .Buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .Buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .Buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .Buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz.
I like it like that.
Well, I don't know what you came to do, but what we came to keep the funk alive.
That's right, baby. We're keeping the funk alive right here at Big Daddy Fink's Funky Roller Ring, your groovy home of soul, funk, and disco. So join me, Big Daddy, every Thursday night at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific at the Funky Roller Ring, where every night is Saturday night.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining. Welcome back, everyone. Almost 23 after the hour, and today we're taking a look at a report that has come from the ArcView Group, their most recent report on marijuana legalization. This report makes predictions for the industry dating all the way out to 2020, and the group discovered that the market for legal cannabis grew by 74% in 2014. This is $2.7 billion in industry in the past year, up from $1.5 billion in 2013. The report further concludes that if the trend toward legalization spreads to all 50 states, marijuana could become larger than the organic food industry. Now, they surveyed medical and recreational marijuana retailers, as well as the ancillary businesses and independent cultivators for 7 months between 2013 and 2014, also compiling data from state agencies, nonprofit organizations, and private companies for a complete look at the marijuana marketplace. And I'd like to turn to some slides here that we have, graphs from this report that are quite telling. The first one here shows us their prediction for marijuana legalization happening all across the United States by 2020. And the current legal states, of course, Washington and Colorado in dark blue, and then Oregon and Alaska in a lighter blue that have adult use by 2014. In the next electoral cycle, adult use 2015-2016, ArcView Group is predicting marijuana legalization will come to California, Nevada, Arizona, Maine, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Delaware. Now, I think that's a pretty ambitious prediction. I'm not so sure of the chances of legalization in Arizona, having only passed medical marijuana by the slimmest of margins, 50.13%. Legalization chances in Maine are pretty good, I would say, as well as Vermont, depending on how their legislatures will work in Vermont. Maine does have initiative, so they may pass it through the initiative process. Massachusetts does as well. Rhode Island's another state where we're looking at a possible legislative passage of adult legalization. And in Delaware, again, that's a state where it'll be kind of hard to predict. I'm not so sure we can really count on Delaware. In the following electoral cycle, 2017 through 2020, predictions are for Montana, New Hampshire, Connecticut, New Jersey, and Maryland. I got Delaware and Maryland confused. I'm sorry. The next electoral cycle would be Maryland, and the following would be Delaware. Again, these are pretty bold predictions. Montana has had some trouble keeping its medical marijuana program running through the threats of legislators. Hard to predict how they'll go for legalization. The prediction for Connecticut isn't that far off. New Hampshire could definitely come around by then. New Jersey, that's a really bold prediction. Even by 2020, the state has been so reticent to move forward, even on medical. Hard for me to accept that that would go forward that quickly, but you never know. And then, of course, tiny Delaware moving forward in 2020 as well. Looking at this map, you can tell that it looks like Idaho is pretty much going to be surrounded. That whole Intermountain section of states, Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah, are pretty soon going to be surrounded by legal use states. Taking a look at another graph that they've provided for us, this one shows us a look at the states that are proposed to have medical marijuana passing as soon as possible. The states that already have medical marijuana shown in the dark green, 23 states so far, and actually the greenish states through different years. The dark green are the ones that passed 96 through 2000, 2001 to 2005 for the next shade of green, the next lightest 2006 through 2010, that kind of gray green 2011 through 2014. And they're really only predicting 2 more states to pass medical marijuana by 2016. Those would be Pennsylvania and Florida. And we're hearing good news out of both of those states with respect to medical marijuana's chances. I think they're leaving out a state here. I think Wisconsin has a chance to pass medical marijuana, and neither of these graphs have shown any activity in Missouri, where I find that the activism is still very, very strong, and the possibilities of legalizing in Missouri are very good. The billions in sales are shown, 2.7 billions in medical sales and of retail sales and 20% wholesale. Of those sales, 82% of the sales of marijuana in America are for medical use, 18% for adult use. And finally, in our last graph, a look at how all of the sales have broken down in legal marijuana. The state of California providing almost half of all the $2.7 billion in U.S. cannabis sales, 49%. Colorado racking up another 30% to be number 2 in the list. Washington State sitting at 8%. Arizona at 6%. Michigan at 4%. Oregon at 2%. And all other medical marijuana states coming in at 1% of those $2.7 billion in cannabis sales. This, of course, illustrates how important legalization is in the state of California coming up here in 2016. And the total market share of all states legalizing marijuana, if all 50 states legalize, they're saying it would top out at $36.8 billion. That's $3 billion larger than the organic food industry. Troy Dayton from the ArcView Group says these are exciting times and new millionaires and billionaires are about to be made. 420 Radio, freeing your mind 24 hours a day. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at...
Despite strong public support for medical cannabis, decriminalization, and legalization in Georgia, the state spends $121 million every year to arrest, prosecute, and imprison Georgians for simple possession. Each year, the state of Georgia spends less on driver services, agriculture, and forestry combined. What else can $121 million a year do in Georgia? With that much money, the state could hire and keep 3,000 more teachers, improve roads and bridges, provide tax relief for small businesses, repair aging sewage systems, or lower taxes. But right now, that's millions of dollars of your tax money wasted on failed enforcement. Tell your representative you're tired of wasteful spending and ask them to end cannabis prohibition. Join the conversation at www.peachtreenormal.org. Peachtree Normal is a proud affiliate of NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws.
Are you a hypocrite? If you live a closeted cannabis lifestyle, you are. Read about 7 people living a closeted cannabis lifestyle who are on the verge of coming out in The Hypocrites by Mara K. Eaton. Available at areyouahypocrite.net. You can purchase the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, also available on iTunes. Check out Mara K. Eaton on Facebook as well. Learn more at areyouahypocrite.net.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
Welcome back, everyone. 31 after the hour, and if you were listening to yesterday's show, we went through the state of Ohio and the 4 different groups that are vying to put some sort of reform on the next ballot. Joining us from Ohio, we've got one of my favorite people in the world, Tonya Davis from Responsible Ohioans. Hi, Tonya. How are you?
Hey, Russ, you are also one of my favorite people.
Oh, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And boy, I tell you, as I mentioned yesterday, it used to be, you and I go way back, and it used to be back in the day, you'd struggle just to get one group together to try to put something on the ballot. Now you guys have an embarrassment of groups. There's like 4 different groups working here. Can you give us a rundown of what's going on in the state of Ohio?
I just think different people are doing different approaches. Ohio is such a strange animal.
Well, let's start with your group, Responsible Ohioans. Tell folks about your group and what you're proposing for legalization.
Well, basically, we're proposing freedom. We're proposing to end prohibition. We want to be able to grow our own if that's what we want to do. We want to be able to have our choices. We want a free market. I was originally just for medical use, and now I just want to end prohibition altogether.
What changed your mind on that? What was the shift from going to just medical to wanting to go full legal?
Because just the mention of the word marijuana freaked out Children's Services here in Ohio, and because I was an activist, I automatically had to be a substance abuser. And so they refused me, my granddaughter, who needed placement with me temporarily. So prohibition hit me, and they had never even drug tested me.
Wow.
And to call me a substance abuser was just wrong, So I saw the other side of it. Of course, medically, this would benefit me greatly and benefit millions of Ohioans. But prohibition, too, as Rob Ryan would call it, affects everyone, and it tears apart families, and it's just wrong.
Yeah, it's something I've always said that, patients can never truly be protected until they don't have to prove they're not criminals. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if no one's a criminal, then we're all protected.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, let me talk a little bit about this initiative that you're proposing, because it is one of the most liberal ones I've seen. I would compare it to the California Cannabis Hemp Initiative so-called Jack Herer initiative. You're proposing 99 plants, 99 kilograms, and the release of all marijuana prisoners. Is this a tough sell in Ohio to when the other states have only legalized, 6 plants, 4 plants, a few ounces here and there?
Well, I don't, people thought Jack Herer was crazy. I think he was a genius. He was one of my favorite people in this world. But, no, they ought to just end prohibition, period, on it. And if you grow, I'm not suggesting that people go out in their backyard and grow 99 plants, okay? I'm not saying that at all. But under the federal law, it doesn't become a federal problem until it's 99 plants, right?
Right, yeah, 100 plants.
If I'm correct.
Yeah, 100 plants kicks off that mandatory minimum.
Right. So why not just end prohibition altogether? Cincinnati has finally come to its senses and not going to punish people or whatever if they've had a record on cannabis. So people just need to get with the program, and I apologize if I'm sounding a little rough. I'm suffering from a concussion.
Oh, no.
I had a 5-drawer filing cabinet fall on me.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
I was just in the ER 2 days ago, so.
Well, you're doing great.
For the second time, so bear with me.
You're doing fine, Tonya. We appreciate you being here and fighting through that like you always do. We have a question from our chat room. Jay Maestro wants to know, how do you feel about this 800-pound gorilla, the cartel monopolists, appropriating your name?
That doesn't surprise me because when I was involved with the Ohio Medical Compassion Act, there was another group that went very close to that. So this doesn't surprise me. It's just a way to confuse people. I was on the website looking at this monopolies political action committee, and they keep hollering that they have funding, they have funding, they have funding, and this is what the media is just falling in love with. On all their funding, it shows 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So I'm not seeing the money. So I wish people would just quit falling for that, I will tell you this, though, Russ. We've got a musician that has approached us that when we do get our wording submitted and approved, our summary, which we'll be submitting it in about a week and a half, 2 weeks, we will have funding. So we can't wait for that. We're just real excited about that. I believe that the monopoly group should not be limited to just 10 people. That's wrong. If anyone wants to get into the market, they should be able to get into the market. And I should be able to purchase or grow my own if that's what I choose to do. That should be my choice, not someone else's.
We're speaking with Tonya Davis from ResponsibleOhioans.org. They're proposing a marijuana legalization, 99 plants, 99 kilograms, all pot prisoners freed, low taxation, etc. You can see all the details. They've got their amendment text up there. You can actually read it as compared to Responsible Ohio, which is just putting out some summaries and not really giving much in the way of details. Now, with the funding that you've got coming, and supposedly Responsible Ohio is going to have some funding, although we haven't seen evidence of it yet. Do you anticipate there's going to be 2 of you moving forward? And if so, any ideas on maybe changing your name or forcing them to change their name?
Well, Responsible Ohioans for Cannabis became a group in 2011. And life has thrown us different things our way that have slowed us down. And our wording was rejected the first time around. So Donnie and I have been working on this and trying to get the wording correct so that our Attorney General and our Secretary of State will approve it and get us going on this.
Okay. And
but no, we're not going to change our name.
Okay.
Why should we?
Well, that's right. You were there first.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying, you were there
ahead.
first. Like you said, 2011, you've been a PAC since then. You'd think they should have to be forced to change their name.
Yeah, or so what? Actually, with them doing this to confuse people, what it's doing, it's sending more people our way. So we're getting volunteers out the kazoo because people are thinking that we are one or the other. Don McAdams is here, so I'm so excited. He's going to be talking to you guys too, okay?
Well, we just got about a minute left,
hang on
Tonya.
1 second, Russ.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we only have about a minute left, Tonya, but I encourage everyone to check out ResponsibleOhioans.org. And the other groups that are looking to reform in Ohio are Legalize Ohio 2016 and OhioRights.org. The Ohio Rights Group is moving forward with medical marijuana. We've got about less than a minute left. Dawn, if you're on the line, if you'd have anything you wanted to say to our audience.
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Donnie, you've got 1 minute. You got 1 minute.
Hello.
Hey, Don, I apologize. We've only got about 30 seconds left in this, but if you're going to be hanging out at Tonya's place, could we get you guys back on the line for hour 2?
For you mean later on?
Yeah, in about 20 minutes, yeah.
Well, I am kind of cutting off of work right now, but I can.
Okay, hang out for another 20 minutes. We'll call you back at the top of the hour because we got plenty more to talk about. We don't have enough time here in this first hour, okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Don McAdams and Tonya Davis from ResponsibleOhioans.org. Check them out and give them all the support you can. We're trying to get past everywhere we can, and it's always frustrating when you have multiple groups working on the same thing. It's something that we had to battle with in Oregon. Maybe it's a feature of states that start with an O. I'm not sure. Well, that's not true. They got the same problem in California. Anyway, we got to take a break. The anti-drug public service announcement of the day is next, followed by a radical rant. John Kitzhaber, more people voted for legal weed than voted for you, fella. Better pay attention. Elections have consequences. We're back right after this.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, your ticket to Seattle Hemp Fest. Are you in the market for portable vaporizers now? Get online to vapes.buzz, the quick and easy link to portablevaporizers.now.com. Vapes.buzz has everything you're looking for, including vape pens, herbal vaporizers, e-juice, parts, accessories, and more. Visit vapes.buzz and save 5% instantly, or give them a call at 866-264-2415. Vapes.buzz. Get vaping, baby! In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
This is a vial of crack, rock cocaine. As you may have noticed, it doesn't come with a warning label. If it did, it might tell you that smoking crack affects the brain, the nervous system, the lungs, and the heart. It would also say that crack can kill you. The problem is, no one knows exactly how much it takes to do it. So every time you try it, it's a guessing game. And if you guess wrong with this stuff, you die.
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
We must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana, pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make room.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
And one major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant. Welcome back, everyone. 46 after the hour, and today I want to take aim at some comments made by the governor of Oregon, John Kitzhaber, MD, serving his historic 4th term in the governor's mansion here in Oregon. And the governor has some problems with marijuana legalization as passed by Measure 91. This is something that's happening right now. We passed Measure 91 with 56% of the vote. And that was the highest support a marijuana legalization plan has ever drawn out of the 4 states that have voted on it. But the legislators in Salem and now the governor seem to think the voters didn't know what they were doing when they voted on Measure 91. It's a strange phenomenon. Back in 2012, when it was Measure 80, we rejected it with only 46% of the vote. And at the time, they told us it was because voters didn't like the details of the initiative, that they supported legalization in general, but didn't like the unlimited possession, didn't like the unlimited cultivation, didn't like the 7-member cartel of growers that would be the sole point of purchase that would set all the prices. Apparently in 2012, we voters read the details of Measure 80 and rejected it. But then in 2014, when our support goes up a full 10 percentage points to 56%, why, that's just because we voted on legalization in general, and we weren't really paying attention to the details, and we didn't really want what we voted on as far as 8 ounces of possession, 4 plants, the state being the sole source of taxation, and so forth. The legislators seem to think that we're idiots, and they've got to fix the mistakes we've made before the law has even been implemented. Let's implement that law and see what happens. Let's do what the voters supported. And then if we need to make fixes, we can make fixes. As my chart shows you here, over 100,000 more voters chose Measure 91 than chose Governor Kitzhaber. It's time to listen to the will of the voters. Let's see what Governor Kitzhaber has to say on the issue on this video provided from the Oregonian newspaper.
One of it has to do with the home grow provisions, which seem sort of out of sync with a regulated market. The amount you can actually grow in a home grow operation seems to me to exceed the amount that you're supposed to be able to have legally. I don't know how you enforce that, whether you right now could be out in your yard. So there's some real questions, some definitional questions there.
See, this is a part that really concerns me, this idea that the home grow amounts are too much. First of all, in the state of Colorado, they're letting people grow 6 plants, 3 mature, 3 immature. In Alaska, it's going to be 6 plants, 3 mature, 3 immature. In Washington, D.C., it's 6 plants per person, 12 plants per household. So Oregon has already voted on the lowest amount of home grow allowed in any of the states that allow home grow. 4 plants, and not 4 plants per person, 4 plants per household. Is this part of the reason Measure 91 got 56% of the vote as compared to the other states that did worse? Maybe so. Maybe the will of the voters here should be listened to. In the picture there, you can see a small 4-plant garden in someone's backyard, and the amount of weed you could then harvest from that garden would be 2 ounces per plant. Now, a lot of growers can do better than that, but At least the worst growers, even getting 2 ounces per plant, shouldn't be criminalized because they've now got more than their 1 ounce of possession. It should also be noted, Governor Kitzhaber, that in Colorado, they allow for the possession of all of the results of harvests. That's a number without an upper bound, Governor. That means residents of Colorado right now can store pounds and pounds and pounds of marijuana and just claim those to be the results of their harvest. So already, Oregon is starting with a limit that is far lower than what's going to be allowed in Colorado. In Alaska, you can possess up to 4 ounces at home under their state's privacy laws. That's been in effect since 1975. We haven't heard of any major problems with people home growing in Colorado or home growing in Alaska. And for further evidence of this, we need only look at our state's medical marijuana program, where patients are allowed to cultivate 24 plants, 6 mature, 18 immature. If we've been able to have these medical marijuana people cultivating so much home grow, why is it then when someone's healthy that we should be more scared of how much marijuana we're growing? We're already accepting a far lower limit than patients. And if you want to enforce it, just get a GPS and a scale.
I'm concerned about law enforcement. You know, one of the reasons that I had recommended during the campaign, obviously not particularly effectively, that we wait a couple of years and learn what we can learn from Colorado and Washington, is that, you know, there's no breathalyzer test for driving under the influence of marijuana, and so how do you actually enforce this on the roads?
This is another lesson that we have learned from Colorado and Washington state. First of all, driving under the influence of marijuana is already illegal in the state of Oregon. It's not as if legalizing marijuana under Measure 91 has suddenly made cars and marijuana smokers. They've already existed. And this idea that now that we've legalized, we need some sort of magic number that tells when someone's a stoned driver just makes me wonder, how have we been catching the stoned drivers so far? How are we doing it right now? We've got over 70,000 medical marijuana patients. We've had tens of thousands of patients for years now. And yet we see marijuana related accidents. We see all accidents going down in this state, as they've gone down in all the states that have legalized marijuana. Measure 91 calls for a study on an effective way of combating marijuana impaired driving, one that is actually scientifically reliable, rather than these 5 nanogram per se laws that we see in Washington or permissible inference that we see in Colorado. These magic numbers have no bearing in science, and all they do is serve to convict and allow for the harassment of unimpaired drivers who happen to use marijuana. And it's a problem. It's a solution in search of a problem. As we look at the numbers in the state of Oregon, in this graph, Oregon is the blue line, and what we're graphing is the number of traffic fatalities since 2004 and the relative percentage of whether they've risen or fallen. Since 2004, traffic fatalities were up in 2005 and 2006 in Oregon, but they have been down ever since. There are more than 30% fewer traffic fatalities in Oregon in 2013 after we've got all these medical marijuana dispensaries and tens of thousands of patients. The same kind of declines can be found in Colorado and Washington state, the 2 sets of green lines, where they are down below 20% fewer traffic fatalities. And even in California, which some people would say is de facto legalized, their rates of traffic fatalities have also fallen. Not one of these states have more traffic fatalities now after a decade of widespread marijuana reform and legalization. And so I see no reason why to get all scared about impaired drivers now when they haven't existed so far.
And we're completely understaffed in terms of the state police highway patrol function right now. You got parts of Southern Oregon that don't really have any effective law enforcement, so that's another big concern.
Well, this concern about the staffing of police is something that the supporters and authors of Measure 91 took into account. We all want to have safe communities. We all want to see that the police are properly funded. The Legislative Review Office in the state of Oregon evaluated that between 2017 and 2019, Oregon is going to reap about $50 million in marijuana tax revenues. $50 million. Now, 15% of that, or $7.5 million, is already earmarked to the state police. It's the equivalent of 149 first-year state troopers' salary. So if you need to hire more state troopers, Governor, here is some money for that. $7.5 million, averaging out to about $2.5 million per year. We're all for hiring some more police officers. That'd be about 50 new state troopers that we could hire over that 3-year period. Furthermore, for the local communities, 10% of the pot tax money, $5 million, goes to county law enforcement. Another 10%, another $5 million, goes to local law enforcement. Marijuana legalization is providing the tax revenue necessary to hire more law enforcement at the state, county, and local level without raising any sort of property taxes or having any levies that are politically unpopular. Why the governor would be running away from free money, money that's already out there being spent on the black market, why he would oppose diverting that now to the legitimate law enforcement needs of the state is beyond me. And to think that the sheriffs and the district attorneys of the state of Oregon raised money on public time fighting against Measure 91, and now they want to complain that they won't have enough money to enforce it. And as they're complaining about it, rape victims and crime victims all throughout the state suffer when there are not enough police officers to staff the 911 lines, the 911 responses during the weekends and after hours. We want to change that.
I guess the third concern is how do you set up a framework that forces most of the activity into the regulated market, right, and reduces the black market. So this is going to be a really important conversation to make sure that we do this as best as we can here in the state of Oregon, and I want to be an active part of that conversation.
Well, you can be an active part of the conversation, Governor, but you also need to understand that the will of the people have spoken. 56% of them supported marijuana legalization. You couldn't even get a majority of the voters in Oregon to support your elected office. You got like 49.5% of the vote. More Oregonians voted against you than voted for you. I think it would be instructive to pay attention to what the voters voted for and to not think that we're idiots, to understand that we saw the details of Measure 91 and we believe that they provided important solutions to the lessons we learned in Colorado and Washington. The lessons we learned is don't overtax and don't underproduce. Both states overtaxed marijuana. They had the prices far higher than the black market. That is what encourages the black market. And Washington licensed too few producers, which led to a decrease in supply and an increase in price. Oregon's single point of taxation at just $35 an ounce ensures that we will have a competitive low price that can beat the black market when you add in the price or add in the convenience and selection that you'll get at a marijuana store. And if these cities and counties decide to ban access to commercial marijuana and if the legislature lets them tax it at the local level, I guarantee you that will raise the price of marijuana, and that is exactly what the black market wants. Well, folks, that's all the time we got for Hour 1 today, but stay tuned for Hour 2, Toker Talk Radio. Be back taking your calls at 971-533-7111. Got plenty of stuff to talk about in Hour 2, including a look at the ideological differences in the Missouri marijuana movement. It's the latest episode of the soap opera As the Bowl Burns. For everyone here at 420radio.org, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
Hey, hey, hey.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant